And nowhere is this more evident than with the ill-fated Gizmondo. Originally conceived as the game track by Tiger Telematics,
No relation.
Gizmondo was hyped to hell and back with plenty of promotions and secondary features. As for the games, there were a grand total of 14 of them. And with such games as Sticky Balls and Mama Can I Mow the Lawn, it's not hard to see why this thing bombed. The Gizmondo launched with a price of $400. For that, you could have easily gotten a PSP or DS with some games. Keep in mind, this was a handheld in 2005. There was a less expensive version that came with built-in advertisements.
I mean, on one hand, I'm appalled that a console with built-in advertisements was even considered. On the other hand, I'm betting some exec is looking at this and going,
Write that down, write that down!
Allegedly, the servers that were supposed to play said ads were never activated, so... Whoops. There's also the fact that the CEO, Stefan Eriksson, was linked to the Swedish mafia, further destroying this console's already terrible reputation. All these factors led to the Gizmondo being discontinued after less than a year, taking the manufacturer with it, and being the worst-selling handheld console.
in hindsight, I'm really not surprised that this thing failed. It used the same narration as B-Movie.
According to all principles, it's too heavy for its wings. It just can't fly. But no one has told this to the bumblebee. So it flies and flies. He doesn't care much about principles, do you?
You like jazz?
The CDI was definitely an interesting experiment. For starters, it was marketed as a multimedia system first, game system second. Gee, why does that sound familiar? As a game system, the CDI was, well, bad. Let's get the obvious thing out of the way first. The second controller port was on the back of the console. That's the kind of design flaw so blatant you swear it was done for the sake of it. And the controllers themselves were bizarrely designed. If you thought the N64 controllers were designed for alien hands, these seem to be designed for Lovecraftian horrors, one for each ultimate god.
What the hell did they do to that controller?
While most of them were wireless and the wireless worked very well for something from 1994, none of them were conducive for gaming, especially with D-pads and joysticks that had little in the way of solid grip. A more dedicated gaming controller came out much later, but why would anyone want it at that point? For being one of the first CD-based consoles, the CDI had little to offer in terms of games. Most of them were limited to interactive museum tours or edutainment games. Of course, you can't talk about the CDI without mentioning the infamy that was the licensed Nintendo games. We've all seen the parodies, we've all seen the memes, so I'll sum it up like this. There's a very good reason Nintendo refuses to acknowledge these things.
It really makes you wonder why the creator bothered to take down the fan remake. Apparently it was because they were afraid of a cease and desist. You do realize that Nintendo would have to acknowledge that these games were made if that was the case, right?
The interesting thing about the CDI is that while it didn't do so well as an actual game console, it was still used in other ways, mainly as, well, a CD player. There were even classes of CDIs designed for use as presentation hardware, so it's common to see businesses utilizing one of these. Heck, it was one of the first consoles to have online capabilities. They were far from stellar, but it was definitely bold for the time. In the end, the CDI, while it did find a home in other formats, it was a pretty sucky game console. It was a nice beefy piece of hardware for the time, but it couldn't decide what it wanted to do or be. It tried to do everything, but excelled at none of it, which is far more than I can say for number one. This is it. The worst console of all time. Worse than the Stadia. Worse than the 5200. Worse than the Gizmondo. And worse than the dreaded CDI. Now, let us glimpse into what I have deemed the worst console of all time.
Do not be fooled by its commonplace VCR appearance. Strap in.
This is the Laser Active. It was Pioneer's answer to the console that, at the time, was what they thought their greatest competition was. The Philips CDI. If you think that's funny, well, I hope you have a taste for the dark and or absurdist kind of humor, because otherwise we might see Twitter get it canceled. Remember how expensive the 3DO and Pippin were? Well, this was way worse. The base console on release was $900 in 1993. And you heard me, I said base, because for some reason, incomprehensible to even Cthulhu, this console decided to take a page out of Sega's book by adding a bunch of add-ons to the console. Called modules, these pieces of hardware allowed you to play games for the TurboGrafx-16 and Sega's Genesis and CD. Oh yeah, did I say take a page out of their book? I meant literally working with them to replicate their crappy add-ons for Pioneer's even crappier console. And they were $600 a piece in 1994! And if that's good enough for you to make this the worst console, I'm not done. There were even more module add-ons. There was a module that cost $350 that allowed you to play karaoke games. Compare that to the Guitar Hero World Tour bundle, which had a game and a full band set that cost $189 in 2008. There was even a module that let you play floppy disks and supported Mac OS, so the Pippin's here too. But wait, there's more. They even created a 3D goggles module to allow for playing 3D supported games and work with the Sega Master System. And the adapter to use these goggles were sold separately. I swear this sounds really familiar. So not only did this thing use features from 4 other entries from this list and do them all worse, but also sold them at the price of a modern day mid-range gaming PC. Yep, I haven't even talked about the games yet. Most of the games are just QuickTime event games that required the modules to actually work. And the games cost $120 a piece. Remember how many people were mad about games costing $60 or $70 today? Yeah, you've seen nothing. Well, you're probably thinking with such a high price point for both the games and the console and not much to offer, it wouldn't sell well. And it didn't. Most places say that it only sold 10,000 units, but unfortunately, there isn't a verified source that gives us an actual number. That speaks a lot when a console failed so hard that we don't even know how little it sold. Well, luckily for everyone, the Laser Active was discontinued in 1996. I think Pokemon, since that came out in the same year. With all of these issues, poor pricing, poor design, and a bad gaming catalog, the Laser Active is my choice for the worst console ever. And I'm so glad it isn't active anymore.
I'm the Fiery Joker, and I'm glad I never had to spend any money on these bad consoles. I just wish I could spend money on a good one.
Can I get a
I need a minute to think about this. Nope, 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 no thanks, no thank you.